What is up there, everybody? Sea of Red Sports here with yet another video, and today we are doing our top 10 teams of the week for week 8. And this week the Big Ten is playing, and so we will be putting in our Big Ten teams this week. And then I believe next week we'll put in our Pac-12 teams as they will be playing as well. And so I'm looking forward to doing that. And we're going to be starting off here with our teams that we have. And so I have our graphics up again this week. And we have the same number 1 and 2 teams, that being number 1 Clemson and number 2 Alabama. I think the reasons for that are fairly obvious. Clemson is the best team in the country. They just beat something called Georgia Tech 73-7. The only reason Georgia Tech is relevant or even in the ACC is because once upon a time they beat a high school team 220-0. But since then they have fallen off the map, and Clemson destroyed them this weekend. And then Alabama just beat Georgia. It's just fairly obvious that the Crimson Tide is just so much better than Georgia right now. They beat them 41-24. I watched pretty much the entire game. It was a very good game. We'll get to Georgia here soon because we have a little bit of disagreement on that. These are some of the only teams we actually agree on. We actually agree on our position on Penn State, which we'll get to here in a moment. But we have a slight difference on most of our top 10. And that's because we each have a slightly different philosophy we're doing with our teams. So, as I saw the teams 3 through 5, I'm going to have Red River Aviation explain why he has his teams ranked the way he does, and then I'll explain why I have my teams ranked the way I do.
Okay, Notre Dame, obviously they had a very tight game versus Louisville this week. Teams falling in the top kind of just led to them progressing up for me. I have Ohio State at number 4. I just want to make sure they play well here versus Nebraska and get the show on the road. Just, that kind of just makes sure that they're legit type deal. And then I will boost them up in my rankings. But I just want to make sure they get up and running. But Notre Dame's done pretty well this year, so I thought they were deserving over Ohio State. I would still probably take Ohio State in the one-on-one matchup, but I just want to see them play. At number 5, I have Oklahoma State, again, just kind of progressing up. Big game versus Iowa State this week. And if they win and potentially even win convincingly, then I think Oklahoma State's the real deal. This is their first major test of the year for sure. So that's my top 3 through 5, I apologize. And, I just thought that they were just waiting to see what Ohio State can do, and the other two teams just kind of progressing up, creeping up through losses.
Okay, so a lot of what you seem to be doing for your teams is basically essentially doing the eye test for a team. If they win and they look good, you put them up. If they lose, they drop down, something like that.
Oh, yeah, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you'll see from my number 3 through 5, I have Ohio State 3, Georgia 4, and Notre Dame 5. So I use a slightly different strategy for ranking my teams. The eye test works great, but you might notice that Georgia lost this week, and they got kind of embarrassed a little bit, particularly in the second half of that game against Alabama. But I only dropped them down one spot, and the reason for that is because, 1, Ohio State overtook them. I think Ohio State would do almost the same thing to Georgia that Bama did to Georgia. I think it'd be a similar result. But the reason why I didn't drop Georgia as far as you'll see Red River Aviation did a little later here is because I look at this Georgia team and I'm like, they are still going to beat almost everybody they play. There's only like maybe 5 teams in the entire country that can beat them right now. This team is very good, but they're just not able to beat somebody like Alabama. Stetson Bennett is a decent quarterback. For a walk-on 4th string, he's not terrible. But the problem is he turned the ball over 3 times in a really important game. A lot of his issues have to do with that he's a really short dude. I can feel his pains because I'm also a short individual. So when literally everybody is taller than you are, including the football, you can have some issues. And he turned the ball over 3 times. And you're just not going to win a game against Alabama when you're -2 in the turnover margin. Alabama did turn over the ball once, but then they got the ball right back from a turnover, and they scored. And all 3 of the turnovers that Bama got over Georgia, they turned those into touchdowns. And so if we don't include those, Alabama only scored 20 points in this game, which is really impressive. The Georgia defense is very good. They're just not good enough when they turn the ball over. Maybe if things improve and Stetson Bennett stops turning the ball over, maybe we'll see a different result in the SEC championship game. But to be honest, I don't think that'll happen. But I still have Georgia 4 because I do think they would beat literally everybody below them. Maybe Penn State could beat them, but other than that, I don't really see anybody else on this list having a real chance to beat Georgia. I have Ohio State at 3, simply because I have bought into them. I think they are the real deal. Obviously, we'll see this weekend against Nebraska. Stay tuned to the channel because there's a preview prediction for that coming up soon. And then Notre Dame I have at 5. I'm just not really impressed by this team. I don't think Ian Book is the solution for Notre Dame's quarterback problem. And I think it'll be a while. Well, maybe the new 5-star recruit they have coming in, I think it's 5-star, for the quarterback will be the solution to their problem. But that'll be next season or maybe the season after that he actually gets good. I am just not impressed with how Notre Dame is winning their games. I mean, so what? They're doing better than North Carolina. They're winning the game. But they're not winning impressively and not in the fashion I want to see them for a top 5 team. So I have them at the bottom of the top 5 heap. Would you say it's fair to say that there's basically the top 2 teams in the country, and then there's in a tier below them, there's 5 or 6 teams below them?
A bunch of other teams that are just trying to be as good, but just not as good. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd say that. So we both have Penn State our number 6 team. Do you want to explain why we have Penn State there?
Yeah, I'm just really eager to see what they do. I thought that was the best placement for them, maybe a little lower, but we'll have to see how they prove themselves. They're playing Indiana this week, so it's going to be a good game there to see what they're capable of. But I thought that they were worthy of a top 10 placement for sure, and I decided to put them at number 6.
Yeah, for certain. I'm not doing a preview on the Penn State-Indiana game, but that game's going to be close. I'm just going to say it right now. Indiana is one of the most underrated teams in the country. I think this ends up being a final drive type game where whoever has the ball last in the fourth quarter probably wins this game. I think it's going to be really close. This game will probably go into the 30s on both sides. We'll probably look at it over under about 70 points here. I think Ohio State will easily beat Nebraska. That's just kind of the spoiler warning for the video that I'm going to make. But I do have a caveat to that. Penn State is going to be really good. Micah Parsons, probably the best player in all of the Big Ten, has not opted back in. However, the rest of the team seems to be fully on board of playing. So I think they're going to be good this year. We'll just have to see how good they are. So at my number 7, I have Oklahoma State because they have been 3-0. They did not get to play Baylor because of, the whole issue thing going around.
They had to isolate 60. Baylor did, so not an Oklahoma State problem. It was Baylor.
Yeah, it was Baylor. I mean, Baylor's had to miss 2 or 3 games already because of what they're doing. But Oklahoma State, though, really did need that game. That's essentially a nice tune-up for Iowa State. Spoiler warning, I have Iowa State number 8. In fact, I'll just show that here. Oklahoma State 7, Iowa State 8. I think Iowa State is actually capable of beating Oklahoma State. They've played better overall this year than Oklahoma State. They've played a little more consistent, except for that first week's game. That was a problem. But ever since then, Iowa State has actually played more consistently. I really like the offense. I really like Matt Campbell's team. I really like what they're playing for, and I really like their quarterback. So I would actually pick Iowa State to beat Oklahoma State this weekend, but obviously that might not happen. And whoever wins that game has a real good shot to win the Big 12 this year. So you have Cincinnati at number 7 and Georgia at number 8. Do you want to explain yourself and why you dropped Georgia so far and why you have Cincinnati in top 10?
I'll start with Georgia. That second half was just kind of tough, and then that quarterback they got just got to keep working and got to keep getting better. I really like their defense, like Citrus got about. Their defense is super good. I still think they're a good team, but normally I'm kind of still in that normal realm for the rankings. Most teams, I think they need to work their way back up. I'll be honest with you guys. I know this is kind of a bad illusion, but my Oklahoma Sooners dropped all the way to 18 from number 3 when we lost to a horrible Kansas State team. I get that this is a different situation, but I think regardless if you lose regardless of who the bet or which team you lose to, that some counter should at least come with that. And I thought that they were worthy. I think they would probably beat Cincinnati and Penn State on a day. And I think they probably should have been a little higher than 8 for what I put them. But I think in a normal year, they probably at least drop 5 spots like I have them here. And I thought that they, I'm sure they'll be back in my top 5 here very soon. But I thought that they'd at least deserve some sort of counter because I just, with the offensive problems that they have, just a couple of them. That first half, that was very impressive. I have to give them to in the first half. They did a great job. But in the second half, things kind of fell apart. So I just want to see how they bounce back. I'm not sure they're playing. I could actually check that real quick if you don't mind me taking a couple moments to do that.
Yeah, I'll just talk about real quick the Alabama defense because that was a big question mark. As I thought might be the case, Nick Saban had his team ready to go, and their defense came to play, and they showed major improvement this week. And I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see improvement as the weeks go on with the Alabama defense. And so we're going to see the one weakness maybe even become the strength of this Alabama team.
Absolutely, 100% agreed. And that could be the same story for the Georgia offense. They got Kentucky this week. This week, Kentucky annihilated Tennessee. So that may be a good game. We'll have to see. But, really eager to see what Georgia can do. I still have my Cincinnati Bearcats 7, unfortunately. I'm not sure if Cincinnati or Tulsa had issues, but one way or the other, they had to postpone the game. It would have been a really good one. Not sure when it's going to be, but I wish they would have played it now because I wanted to see that Tulsa team on their peak after beating UCF and everything. So that's a very, very tough way to not see my team play, one of my teams play, but it is what it is. We have to move on. So I still think, like I've said in previous weeks, Cincinnati's a solid team. Really liking their offense and defense, and just want to see them play some more games. So with them at the 4-0 record, I believe, that 3-0, I'm eager to see what they have. AP still has them number 9. I think they're for sure a top 10 team until the Pac-12 comes back.
Yeah. And I would have put Cincinnati in my top 10, but there was a couple of teams I wanted to discuss this week. I'll probably put them in next week, but there was a few other teams I wanted to talk about this week that I'm really impressed with. So I don't have them in my top 10. It's not because I don't think they're good. I obviously still have the same concerns I did with them earlier, but I think there's a good chance they'll come back in. So with that being said, we'll talk about our number 9 teams. You have BYU. I think that's fairly obvious. They are probably maybe the most explosive group of 5 team in the country. And then I have Florida at number 9. They weren't able to play against LSU this week. That would have been a really good game. In fact, if the two teams were actually going to play right now, I think LSU would actually win. Their offense is actually really good.
With how Florida's defense has played, their LSU would put up 50.
Yeah, that is true. Florida's defense doesn't exist at all. They could not show up on the field and it'd be the exact same result. But LSU really needs a win badly. I think Coach O and that team is going to be really, really started up for a win. But obviously we didn't get to see that game because Florida is a literal dumpster fire. I mean, literally their stadium caught on fire with an actual dumpster. So we know how the team really is. Did you actually see the thing where I think it was a week or two before the actual season started? A dumpster on, I want to say, was the 3rd concession level actually caught fire.
I did not see that. That's pretty bizarre.
Yeah, so Florida's is a literal dumpster fire. Confirmed here.
Confirmed.
So, at number 10, you have Florida. I think it's fairly obvious why. And I have Texas A&M. You were going to see that you didn't have Texas A&M in your top 10, but you had them close. Obviously, Texas A&M won the head-to-head against Florida. I think that's mostly because it was a really good matchup for Texas A&M, not because they were a good team. And as I predicted, they went back to being the same old, not that great Texas A&M team.
Sorry for interrupting, but that was a home game for A&M. They caught momentum. Their offense really played well for their standards, and that's why they won the game. But I think 9 times out of 10, Florida probably finds a way to get out of that game. But that was just the one time it didn't work. But, yeah, I still think Florida, I think, is a lot better than a lot of these other teams for the most part. Offensively, defensively, no. But, yeah, A&M's just not in top 10 for me because I just thought that teams such as BYU, Penn State, if Cincinnati were just slightly better. I was impressed with their win over Mississippi State, I believe, this week, 28-14. I thought they had a decent matchup this week. I will check that right now. Arkansas, yeah. If you don't mind, I'll talk about Arkansas for a couple minutes.
Ahead.
What the heck is that Arkansas team doing? They have been so inconsistent. I have never seen. They are 2-2, and they've looked like 4 different teams in those games. Got blown out by Georgia. They won versus a previously ranked Mississippi State team, which is now kind of, just your typical SEC mediocre team now. Then they barely, and I mean barely, lost to Auburn, which they're not looking like the best team in the world. Above average, but not great, 28-30. And then they came out and they were able to beat Ole Miss, and they got Texas A&M this week. That's a big rivalry game. I could definitely see Arkansas, with how inconsistent they've played, no doubt have a shot in that game. So A&M's got to show up, man, and this is I think this may be A&M's last huge game of the year. I think they may have 1 or 2 more.
They still have to play Auburn and LSU later on. They're going to be favored on both of those.
Auburn and LSU are towards the end of the year. So this really kind of is a turning point because I think A&M's definitely going to roll and potentially into the top 5 if they win this game because they're already 7 in the AP, but their next games they're going to be able to. South Carolina played good last week, but they have shots versus South Carolina, Tennessee, and Ole Miss to get some big wins. But yeah, A&M, this schedule is not looking as fierce as what it did at the beginning of the year, and I definitely see A&M potentially being the second best team in the West. No doubt, no problem whatsoever. So yeah, I think Texas A&M is definitely in the top 10 border. Because with how inconsistent Arkansas has been, if they can come out and potentially get a nice, convincing couple score win, definitely have A&M in my top 10 next week. But yeah. Been impressed with A&M. Been impressed. Nice win versus Mississippi State.
And if A&M actually wins out, they actually have a really good chance to be that number 4 team in the college football playoff.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Not to say that they deserve it, because I don't think they're actually that good.
This year's I have to be honest. I know it's all college football is college football, but this year's kind of fluky, goofy type
Absolutely.
deal. Anything can happen.
Yeah, I just don't really like this Texas A&M team that much. No offense to all the Texas A&M fans, maybe 2 or 3 who watch this video, but I don't really like your team that much this year. It's not because I have anything against you guys. Personally, I just don't think you really have the team makeup to actually beat very many good teams. Fortunately, though, you already played your 2 good teams this year. The rest of them aren't that great now.
Absolutely.
So we have our first teams out. I'm going to throw that up now. We each have 5 teams that we picked. We both picked Wisconsin. I have Wisconsin at essentially 11. You have them at 13. I think the reason is obvious. Wisconsin plays a very physical brand of football. They've been very good at for a long time. They always have at least one good running back. There is an interesting little wrinkle, and that is that Jack Cohn is out with a foot injury. He had surgery for it over the weekend. So that means that their high 4-star recruit Graham Mertz will be starting for them this season, which will be actually the highest rated quarterback that Wisconsin has ever recruited. So he could actually turn out to be really good. And I would really like to see what he does this year.
I think they should ground and pound, but absolutely it's going to be a nice asset to see how Wisconsin utilizes their highly talented quarterback they got.
Oh, fun fact. Do you know Wisconsin is a 23.5-point favorite at home over Illinois, which is the same betting line as Ohio State over Nebraska? Both teams are favored by 23.5 points over their rival.
Besides a couple upsets, that Illinois team has been pretty. Who did Illinois upset last year? Was it Wisconsin? I think it was on a game-winning field goal there.
Yeah, Wisconsin's going to be coming back with anger. They're going to destroy them. They'll probably end up with a targeting penalty and such.
Yeah, I see them covering that with no problem. Oh, yeah, I see them absolutely dominating that game after what happened last year, no doubt.
Yep.
But yeah, going to be excited to see Wisconsin this year, no doubt. Always love to see them ground and pound, and maybe the next running back breaks out like Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one quick comment on that game. I predict Wisconsin to win 38-7. That's just a quick prediction right there. We both have Miami in our first team out. They bounced back, had a nice win over Pittsburgh, 31-19.
Pittsburgh's not the worst team in the world. They're not great, though.
Miami teams of the past, after a blowout loss, have tended to fizzle out. Not this Miami team, so just as we thought, they are back for real, and they're going to be one of the top teams in the ACC this year. What do you think of them?
No doubt, man, no doubt. They got Virginia, and then this is kind of big because they got their big stretch here versus North Carolina State and Virginia Tech. I would like to see them win both those games, but I think you would at least think that they could win. You could at least think that they're going to get one win, probably 2. We'll have to see. But yeah, I really like to see what Miami's going to do. It's going to be great. And no doubt they're back. Nice win versus Pittsburgh to bounce back. Prime time, back-to-back. Virginia's for sure a win, I would have to think. And then, like I said, going to be eager to see what they do versus North Carolina State and Virginia Tech.
All right. And then I have BYU in here. You had BYU in your top 10. They're a good team. Obviously, we already talked about them. You have Iowa State in your teams out, but I had Iowa State in my top 10, and we already talked about them. Both are good teams. They could both arguably be in the top 10, but, we have it the way we do. So we finally have 2 slightly different teams. You have Texas A&M and one of your false teams out, and that's fine. And then you have SMU in your group there. Do you want to talk about SMU? As obviously I know you follow them pretty closely.
Yeah, kind of. But yeah, I watched their big-time win over Tulane. That was a really nice game. Tulane really gave a nice effort. I have to give it to Tulane. That was very impressive. But
Tulane's
overall,
very underrated this year.
Yeah, no doubt about that whatsoever. But SMU was able to come through. Bouchel played it good enough, and they were able to get the win. SMU is looking solid. That Memphis team still looking really nice. I don't know how they found a way to win that game versus UCF, but they did. So, big-time game if they can play Cincinnati this week. I saw somewhere on ESPN, but they said this is like one of the biggest ranking games that group of 5 teams had in a long time, with the top 10 versus a top near 15. SMU will be 16 for this game. So, I am really eager to see what happens here. This is if they get to play it, of course. Prime time, ESPN2, if you're interested. That will be on October 24th, this coming Saturday. But yeah, really excited to see who's going to win here. This is going to be a tough game for both sides. This is a big game to decide potentially who's going to be the best team in the American this year. I'll call a quick prediction here. I really do think that I'm so back and forth. I can't even decide right now. SMU has a little more experience. They've played a couple more games. I don't know why, but I have this gut feeling SMU is somehow going to find a way to come in there or bring Cincinnati into town and find a way to win that game. With a little more experience, Bouchel's going to want it bad. I think somehow SMU is going to win that game. But yeah, SMU looking really sharp this year. Big game. If they can win it, I could easily see them rolling the rest of the year and potentially going did they have near 12 games? 11 in a row or 12 in a row, or how many ever games they have. That's very impressive.
Yeah, I like SMU to win as well. I've had some concerns over Cincinnati, and we'll see if those manifest over the weekend. So, yeah, I have 2 more teams I want to talk about that are in my teams out. Virginia Tech, they are playing really good football right now. They just beat something called Boston College 40-14.
Pretty convincingly, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and Boston College is not terrible this year. They're actually kind of decent. So that was a good win for them. Virginia Tech most reminds me of a team like Wisconsin. They're basically the Wisconsin of the ACC. They ground and pound it. They have a decent quarterback. The defense is pretty good. I am really high on this Virginia Tech team this year. That's why I have them here. If they get another really nice win, they're probably in my top 10.
No doubt. I completely 100% agree with that. I think they're a nice team this year, no doubt.
Yeah, and then finally, we have that little logo you might see in the bottom right of my teams. You're wondering, what is that? That is something called Coastal Carolina. Now, I know that sounds like some Outer Banks residential thing, but that is actually a football team and a college. They're located in, I believe, eastern North Carolina, and they have a famous field that is called the Soft Turf because it's a light blue color. And they've been really good this year. I've had this kind of weird infatuation with the team. I've lost 3 of their 4 games this year, including the game against Louisiana Lafayette. And their offensive production is incredibly impressive. They can both run the ball, they can throw the ball, they can do deep shots. Their quarterback can run as well. They look really, really impressive this year. In fact, I'm going to call the Sun Belt Championship game right now as between Coastal Carolina and Marshall. I think those are the 2 teams who are going to make it this year. And so don't sleep on Coastal Carolina or Marshall. They're both very good. I highlighted Marshall last week. I want to highlight Coastal Carolina this week. I think they're both really good. And it'll be interesting to see who comes out of the Sun Belt as the winner there, because the Sun Belt's actually pretty good this year.
Absolutely.
So thank you to Red River Aviation for coming on to the show. Do you have any parting words you want to say before we leave?
I do actually, if that's all right. I think maybe it would be nice to consider potentially other news, a section for other news, because there is a couple. There's definitely games that are worth mentioning that are not top 15 related. College game day this week is going to Minnesota as they will be taking on Wisconsin in both those teams' first Big Ten action or Big Ten games. Going to be a good game, like Minnesota, but we'll have to see what happens. But with
You mean
game day
Minnesota
there
and Michigan, right?
Michigan. I'm so sorry, Michigan. Yeah, Michigan. It's going to be a good game, but I still like Minnesota to take that game. And then, Kansas State lost Skylar Thompson, so that's really sad for them. They get Kansas this week. That should be a roll for them. And, yeah, they're just going to really eager to see how everybody gets on track. My Sooners are playing TCU. We should be able to go in there. Their offense is so bad. One can only hope our defense looks good. I will take my Sooners to win that game. I really think we're going to do pretty decent. I'm going to call us for 38-. Yeah, I'll go 17. I like that defense for some reason. North Carolina blew it. Not very impressed by their play. So there's that. Rest in peace, North Carolina. I kind of talked about it in previous episodes, but I kind of said I thought they were a little overhyped, and they lost to the worst Power 5 team that has legacy. Is that fair to put it?
Yeah, maybe them. Well, they're kind of in the
Texas.
mix with Nebraska and Tennessee right now.
Oh, God, Tennessee. That game was versus Kentucky. Yeah, their quarterback looked horrible, threw 2 pick sixes, and that's what lost them the game pretty much after that. It was a done deal. So
I don't know if I've ever seen a quarterback throw 2 consecutive pick sixes.
Oh, it happens. But no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, very interesting, no doubt. So, Coastal Carolina was looking cool. I like their emblem. Eager to see what they do this year. So there's that one as well. And Pac-12 is going to get started soon. That's in about 2 or 3 weeks. So there's that as well. And, going to be a lot of good games this week, guys. Get your popcorn ready, and it's going to be a fun Saturday.
Yep. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you to River Aviation for coming on. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day. God bless.